Okay, great. So welcome everybody. We are here today to talk about the Artist in Residence program with Brampton Library. This is our second year doing the program, so we're really excited to see it continue annually. Last year we were at Four Corners Library Branch, and then this year we're at Mount Pleasant Village. And then I'm joined here with Brittany Smith from Brampton Library. She's the interim manager of adult and senior engagement. So maybe Brittany, if you just want to say a quick hello to folks.
Hey everyone. Just as Katie mentioned, I'm the interim manager for our adult and senior engagement at Brampton Library. So I'm responsible for all of our adult programs, adult engagements, and this arrangement, this really exciting opportunity is something that I'm happy to see us bring back again. So yeah, any Brampton Library questions, I'm here for you.
Great. And then I'll just let my colleague Amanda say hello too. She's helping us with the Zoom today.
Hey everyone. Yeah, I work with Katie and Michael and Gardenia at BOW, and I support with our programmings.
Okay, and then as for myself, my name is Katie Belshot. I'm the head of programming with Brampton Arts Org, and I'll be leading you folks through today on what this residency is made up of, what it looks like. We'll have a lot of time for questions as well. So how today is going to run is I have a PowerPoint presentation or a Google slide deck that I'll bring up on the screen in just a moment. Probably go through it in about half an hour or so, we'll see. And at certain intervals, I'll pause for questions. Amanda's going to be managing the chat for us, so feel free to say hello. If you did have a specific question you want us to come back to, the chat is a great place to put that question and then we can revisit it. And then following the presentation that I'll be doing, we'll have time for a dedicated Q&A for your project. And it does look like we're a bit of a smaller group today, which is nice for that Q&A portion. And then just so folks know, both the slide deck and the recording are going to be shared. So you'll have access to those resources following today. I'll send out an email with everything for you. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and we will get started. Except I'm going to have to ask Amanda to give me permissions to share first. In our old Zoom account, we had permissions to have co-hosts, but in our new Zoom, we're not sure how to do that yet. So if anybody has any secret intel, I think we need to do some Googling and figure it out, but for now, I don't know. You may need to enable it for everybody, Amanda, if you can't just do it for me.
I think I might have to go into our Zoom account. Do you want to just try yours for now and then?
Oh yeah, so I'm able to share now. All right, so let me start this from the beginning. Okay, Brampton Artists in Residence program. This is one of my favorites that we do at BOW. I mean, we do a lot of stuff, but this is a really nice dedicated program for artist support that I love. Okay, so briefly, what we're going to review today in this slide deck is we're going to go over what the program specifically supports. We're going to go over the timing of the residency itself, who is eligible to apply. We'll take a look at the library space itself, and Brittany will give us a couple more details. We'll look into selection criteria, and then we'll be able to open the application together. We'll be able to talk that through, and then we'll follow up with a Q&A and discussion. And then some of the images up front, you'll see this is from last year's Artist in Residence with Sima Nassim, who is an animator and illustrator, does lots of really wonderful work. So her culminating project last year was, she involved a lot of youth, and they did a stop motion animation film Sima helped to organize. So you see a couple of images through the presentation of Sima's work. Okay, so what exactly at a high level does this program support? So briefly, and you'll find these in the program guidelines that we'll take a moment together to look through as well. but it's for artists, arts organizations, and collectives. So you don't just have to be operating as an individual artist, and you could be a loose collective. So it could be a trio of artists. There's 2 of you that are working together and are putting together a project that would be eligible as well. It can be any discipline. So that could be literary arts, it could be visual arts, performing arts, music. The only parameters there in terms of the artistic discipline are just what you think you could do with the space within the context of your practice, but that's for you to let us know what you're interested in doing and how you may be able to use that space in Mount Pleasant Village. Another key component of the residency is that it's community focused. So it really is there both for you to develop your practice as an artist, to push your work to maybe explore something new, but also at the same time to be engaging the public, to be working within the community at Mount Pleasant Village branch. That could look like a number of different things, and we've spelled out the types of engagements that we're looking for, which we'll come back to. And then for all of this work that you're doing with BOW and with the library, you will be awarded an $8,000 artist fee. And so you can see Sima here. This was in her space last year at Four Corners. She had a small study room. So that's the space that she was animating, and you've got her sign here with a list of her workshops that she made for herself, and welcomed folks into that space to get involved in her animation process. Okay, so unpacking, what really you would be doing with this residency and what the program is supporting. So for starters, you have access to the free dedicated workspace at Mount Pleasant Village. We'll go through, there's a couple of images of what that space looks like, and we'll talk through what access to that space looks like for you. So I'll pause on getting into that until we're further into the presentation. The other component of the residency is you'll be holding public office hours. So we're asking for you to do 4 per week within the operating hours of the library itself. So these office hours can really be whatever you'd like for them to be. They can be for community mentorship. They can be for folks to just drop in and take a look at what you're working on. So you can see here the images of Sima's, some of her stop motion puppets and some of her paperwork as well. So she kind of had it as a mini drop-in exhibition where folks could come and see these at the start of her residency while she was still figuring out how she was going to be leading her workshops. There's many ways that you could incorporate those hours. The other component of the residency is that we ask that you're delivering up to 3 public arts programming workshops for the community. We really are focusing on multi-generational engagement this year. So these workshops could be, I'm just thinking about Sima's work here. It could be some sort of film screening. It could be DIY workshop. It could be more focused on mentorship. There's a number of different ways you could take those public arts programming workshops into. And then lastly, we're asking that there's some sort of culminating showcase as a part of your residency. So depending on what medium you're working in, this could be an exhibition. This could be like Sima's, a film screening. It could be an overall talk on how you used your time in the residency, how you used how you worked with the community. So that's sort of up to you, and that can be in collaboration as well with library staff and BOW staff as well in terms of what that looks like, if there's additional supports you may need. And then really holding all of these bits and pieces together is space for you to be exploring your practice in a community setting and to engage with the community at the library and the community around Mount Pleasant as well. It's a really lovely space. There's great outdoor space right by Mount Pleasant GO Station, a lot of other little businesses in the neighborhood as well. So that's really what we're looking for within your application, is how you are using this residency for your practice, and then the component around the community and the library itself. Okay, and I should say as well, I'm not looking at the chat right now. So either Amanda or Brittany, you can let me know. And if folks did want to unmute themselves, feel free to interrupt me as well. Okay, so following all of these components of the residency, I'm sure you're curious about what types of activities you could be eligible for within this program. We're really looking for you to let us know what makes sense for you. So that could look like research. It could be a community engaged project or programming focused. It could be some sort of installation. It could be a screening or exhibition. It could be more focused on education and mentorship, performances, really anything that is open to the public and engages them. And then just a note here, so while we are open to you creating installations, we're not looking for permanent artwork as a part of a component of this residency to receive funding. Okay, and then in terms of timing, so this residency is going to be taking place over the summer, which Brittany can attest to is a busy time at Mount Pleasant Branch. So it'll be taking place June, July, and August, and then a final showcase in September. So the successful artist will be contacted end of May, and then you'll begin to be looped into conversations with both BOW and the library to get started on setting yourself up in the space. And then you've got this 3 months dedicated in the library, and then the showcase in September. And so, of course, the schedule of when you're holding your office hours, when it makes sense for you to hold your workshops, is going to be dependent on the scale of what you're proposing, and then additionally in conversation with the library, some of their availability for the programming spaces, as well as the workspace that you'll be using as the artist as part of the residency. So it really is a collaborative effort. Library staff and BOW are there to help you and will be in consultation with you and can provide some mentorship support and have a lot of experience, especially from the library side in terms of what timing works for workshops, etc., things like that. So it won't be just you alone to figure it out. And then in terms of, this is something that we've been talking about through the presentation so far, but to spell it out for you here, it is 3 public residency engagements. We found that it works best when these are drop-in. So we would encourage activities that are drop-in based, because that does involve many of the library goers that are on their way in and out, different age groups, families, multi-generational. We've just found that to be the most successful. We are looking for you to host a minimum of those 4 weekly office hours. You set that schedule, so that's up to you in terms of what that looks like and what works for you. Do you spread that out during the week? Is that on one day? And then the final showcase as well. Okay, so now we're getting into who can apply. So who is this residency for? Are you a good fit? So here we're using or adapting from the Ontario Arts Council, their definition of professional artists and not-for-profit arts organizations or collectives. And so really that language isn't meant to scare everybody off. We recognize that there's different ways that you can commit to growing and investing into your practice. Really, we're just looking for folks that are, dedicated to the arts practice. They've demonstrated that they're are dedicating a lot of time to their practice, and that could be within any discipline, as we spoke about as well. So here's just a bit more of the definition between Ontario Arts Council. This doesn't necessarily mean that you had to have gone to art school. And if you're a bit nervous here in this area, please do reach out to us. We recognize there's lots of ways to get arts education and to be practicing as an artist. So all this to say that shouldn't scare you off of putting in an application. Okay, so this is a bit wordy, but also important to note. So a key piece of this residency for individual applicants themselves, this eligibility we've taken from the Advanced Brampton Fund within the City of Brampton. So if you're familiar about that fund, you may recognize some of these statements here. So as for individuals, undergraduate students are not eligible to apply. You have to be located within the City of Brampton. And if you are to be accepted, you would need to show proof of residence for 12 months prior to the date of application. And then similarly for organizations and collectives, you also have to be located within the city. And because of space constraints, really only 1 to 2 members of that organizations would be able to have dedicated space in the library. Of course, during programming, and other celebrations, more folks from the organization would be able to come out, but in terms of use of the space, we'd be looking for 1 to 2 members. And then similarly, this organization has to be operating within Brampton, and then the applicant that's applying on behalf of the organization has to have a residential address within the city of Brampton and has to have been located in Brampton for a minimum of 12 months prior to applying. Okay, so maybe I will pause here because that was quite a bit of information that we went through. I don't know if folks had any questions or would like to return to some of the information I just spoke about before we get into the space itself. Okay, in that case, I will turn it over to Brittany. Unless that's somebody else unmuting themselves, I can't see.
No, I think you're good. There's no questions in the chat either right now.
Okay, great. Okay, well, Brittany, if you'd like to talk us through this space and let us know what we're looking at here in terms of these images.
Yeah, of course. So, Katie had already kind of mentioned some of this. So, hopefully we're okay with me repeating some of this information, but I think it is really useful for the folks on the call to know. Our Mount Pleasant Village branch is located right next to the Mount Pleasant GO station. So it is really close by, like easy transit, easy access to that. It's just right down the street. And the branch is actually connected to a big like city square area where there's like a fountain out front, and we're connected to a school. So this branch throughout the year, September to June, is always really busy with kids and with families and with students. And in the summer, it's even more busy. We have lots of people who come in for the entire day who really utilize the space. And I think this is one of the reasons why we selected this location, because we just see a lot of folks through, and we really want to make sure that there's an opportunity for you as an artist to connect with the community and to showcase some of the work that you are doing. So in terms of the location, or in terms of the space in the branch, so it's directly off the main entrance of the branch. As soon as you walk into the Mount Pleasant Village branch, this door is directly across from the front entrance. And it's a fairly large space. The space is, I believe it's 21 feet by 17 feet, if I remember correctly off the top of my head.
17
thank
by
you very
21.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And there's an entrance into the library as well as an entrance into the school, though we'll only be using the entrance into the library. It's quite a large space. There is some stuff in there, as you can see right now, but we would be clearing out that space to make sure that you have enough room to practice your artist endeavors here. There's a sink on one side of the space, and there is quite a large window that would allow for people to kind of see you in there when you're working office hours. So this space would be this space would be a space for you to do your practice, to run your office hours, but our branch is also very willing and very open to having you in the space, and really connecting with the community, and really like showcasing your work, and chatting with people. So though that room would be available to you, we are more than welcome to make space for you actually in the branch, in like a more visible walk through way, or if you'd like, there is that that semi-private room. There is a big glass window there. Yeah. So if there's any questions about the space, any questions about the room, I'm happy to answer that. The room is only really utilized by our branch staff. For any other reason, it's not like a shared study space. It's not open to anybody else. So it would really be just used by branch staff and yourself, the artist. Yeah.
Okay, great. And then just a note, Brittany, in terms of the artist leaving stuff out or storing things, what would that look?
Yeah, that's no problem. We've got some space to store some of your stuff. It would be in that room. We would store the stuff in that room, in that space. So if you've got things that you don't want to lug back and forth, there definitely is the space there. And again, it's only used by branch staff, so we wouldn't have anybody else in there using your material in your space. And just back to what Katie was saying about, like the office hours and scheduling that, I would be happy to work really closely with you to identify times that we know that we see a lot of folks coming through, identify times that we know that customers would be open to engaging with you, because we really want to make sure, again, that you're connecting with the community and you've got some community support behind you. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks, Brittany.
No problem.
Okay, so we'll go through here a little bit on selection criteria, then we'll move into the application itself and then open it up for Q&A. So this is listed on the program guidelines, and really many of our calls are based on this type of selection criteria. It changes a little bit, but the key 3 pieces here that the selection panel is looking for is artistic merit, impact, and viability. So what that looks like and what the selection panel will be looking for in these pieces. The artistic merit piece, I mean, that can be connected to your support materials, which we'll talk about in the application. The suitability of the proposed project for the space. So like Brittany said, it's a busy branch. Are you engaging with the community in ways that make sense? Have you proposed a project that makes sense in that space? Or is the project just too big for that square footage and it just doesn't logically make sense? We're looking for the quality of experience that you would be offering to the public. So what is the library receiving in terms of how their community is engaged, how what the services that you're offering the public, does it make sense for all offices? What's the benefit to the local community? Some things you can think about here too are take a look at the library's website for their mission and mandate, along with Brampton Arts.org as well, and see how everything is connecting there. We're also going to be looking at the ability of the applicant to carry out the proposed project. So this also comes back to artistic merit and things like, if you're a literary artist proposing a visual arts experience, maybe that doesn't make the most sense. So, proposing artistic experiences that are in your discipline. And then lastly, the financial viability of your project. So we'll have a moment to review a budget together. But the financial piece is really a storytelling piece for your project. It lets us know that you've thought out artist payments, if you're involving collaborators, how, why, going back to the ability of the applicant. Does it all make sense? Does it flow together? And then this is a big question as well for folks in terms of, okay, well, who is the selection panel? And really, this is your peers and community members. So it'll be made up of BOW staff, library staff, and then local artists as well who are operating in community engaged arts. So this is what it looks like. So you're really talking to your peers, to folks that are involved in community. So you're not talking to folks that are, removed from Brampton. So just something to keep in mind of who you're writing your application for. Okay, so we're moving into our application here. So this is really the application at a glance. These are all of the pieces of the application. I won't read them all out because we will take a look at them together. But this just gives you a bit of an overview of what we're asking for within the application itself. For you to tell us a little bit about the project, who's involved, the overview, outreach goals, what's your work plan, what's the budget, and then information on yourself as an artist, your support materials, and then anything else that you'd like to add in the application that you think we should know. So key things before we dive into the application, I would come back to these as you're writing your application just to try and keep yourself on track. Using clear and concise language that directly answers the questions. Some of the questions have some prompts, so those are helpful to return to as well. There's a word count, and so I think in the application form itself, you can't go over the word count, but making sure that you have that in mind. More isn't always better necessarily. I would try and focus on this clear and concise piece. The selection panel may have a lot of applications to review, so it's important that your idea is clear, it's easy to understand, there aren't any questions or holes. And something that can help you with that piece is having a friend maybe somebody who's not even an artist, a family member, to read your application and tell you if it makes sense, or an artist friend that's not in your discipline. And if they can understand it right away, then that probably means you're in a good space. And then lastly, no filler, no fluff. So this can be very tempting sometimes. I mean, I'm guilty of it too in writing some of my grants sometimes, or that's my first pass and then I have to go through and edit myself again to make sure that there's clarity there. So just really trying to get this out, making sure it's easy to read. We can see your engagements that you're proposing, when your office hours are going to be, what they're going to be about, and that there's a clear vision and theme for your application as a whole. Questions to be thinking of when you are writing your application and things that the panel is going to be looking for. Who is the project serving and supporting? So the project is serving yourself as an artist, of course. So we'd like to see information on how this is, supporting your practice, how it's going to support your growth as an artist. What is this $8,000 going to be used for, investing in yourself? Why in Brampton? Because there is a clear Brampton piece in this application. So what's the importance of you doing this in Brampton within the community of Mount Pleasant Village? As I was talking about the mission statements for BOW and the library, why is this project aligned with both of our work? The second piece here, who is the audience? Who is it for? Why does it make sense that it's for this audience? Are there a bunch of audiences? Are you looking to engage with local arts community in addition to the general public? Making sure that's clear and you've listed those out for us. And then why you is a big question as well. Why are you the person for this project? Are you, have you done previously community engaged arts projects? Is that a gap in your portfolio that you'd really like to grow into? And this would give you a great opportunity to do so. Would this provide you with the dedicated time that you need to explore a project that you just haven't been able to do so or haven't had the funds to explore? So that's a big question there too, to think about this. Why am I the person for this project, for this experience? Okay, and then I just have a slide here on support materials because I think these are pretty important. So we are accepting up to 3 samples of your work. This can look like many different things. It could be images of your work, script samples, music scores, poems, images, videos, an audio recording. It could be a reference letter. It could be an artist CV. You can submit it via a PDF or a Google Doc. And just really making sure that these support materials are linking back to those questions that we just reviewed together and the overall theme of your project itself, and that they're clear and the panel can see the connection between the support materials and what you're proposing. Okay, so I'm going to get out of this presentation and we will take a look at the application together. So here you'll find the webpage for the residence program itself and some brief information on it. So you've got the program guidelines here, which we won't go through because we've been talking them through together. But I would encourage you to give these a thorough read through before applying. And if there's any additional questions, to reach out. And then here we've got the application. So we're just asking who you're applying as. I'm just going to say I'm a individual artist for now. We have just sort of the about you information up here, your contact information, voluntary self-identification, and then we get into the project itself here. So I'm not going to spend too much time on the application. We can come back to it if there are questions, but just briefly. So we've got a project summary, 100 words. So this should help you here to really be clear and concise. This is a quick frame where we can see as a selection panel right away what the project is. We can understand it. And then here you've just below, you've got a prompt on to help you out on what this project summary could look like. And it also may become a description that we'll use for our public marketing purposes. So that could be something to think about as well when you're writing it. Project contributors. So you're welcome to have folks that are going to be contributing to your project. We're just looking for information on who they would be, why do they make sense to be involved. a larger overview here, so you've got a little bit more word count to work with. So here we're looking for your proposed activities. And of course, these may change, which is totally fine. That's where both the library staff and BOW comes into place in terms of it becoming a collaborative project, working together on timelines and what works. What are you looking to get out of it? So why is this important for you, for us to invest in your practice? Any outreach you may be thinking of? Here we're asking for a work plan. So we're looking for, have you thought through all of the different components of the residency in terms of your office hours, the 3 engagements, a showcase, how are they fitting into the residency here, a budget, the organizational statement and bio, your artist resume. And this can look many different forms, so 3-page maximum. Your CV, your resume could be 1 page. It definitely doesn't need to be the max of 3. Anything else you may want to tell us, the support materials, which we spoke about here, and then some declarations here as well. Okay, so I'm going to jump back over to the presentation. And so actually I've just got a slide here on a budget, which I'm going to open up here. So last year's artist in residence, Sima, was kind enough to share this budget with me for this presentation today. And all these links will get shared out to folks. So I just share this budget, not because it's the only way to do it or the only way to organize what your budget could look like, but because I think Sima's project is an interesting example in terms of how she had a whole bunch of stuff going on within her residency. So let me see if I can make this a bit bigger for folks. So up here we have, well, let's go through the categories that Sima has given us. We have artist fees, we have equipment rentals, we have an additional equipment rentals component, another one, and then material costs. So here, Sima's sort of costed out her different kinds of artist fees. She did have some project collaborators, so you can see those fees listed in here. She worked with an editor and a composer in addition to her own fees. Listed on the program guidelines, you'll see there's a number of different professional organizations that set fees for different disciplines. So a big one for visual arts is one called CARFAC. We also list I'm drawing a blank on what they're called, but not minimum wage, but living wage in Ontario as a sort of starting place for paying yourself, say. And let's see if I can make my screen a bit smaller to scroll over. So again, this isn't the only, way to do a budget or the fees that you should be using for yourself. Sim is an animator, so her fees may look differently from yours. But she's got her artist fee costs in the total here. So it's, at first glance, it's very easy to see what's going on. We have like the duration of who's engaged, their hourly rate, and then the total cost there. Here we have some equipment rentals. So she was working with an organization called TASE, which is Toronto Animation something or other. I can't remember the last bit. But she took rentals from them and has this is her membership fee. Then we have different equipment rentals. She tells us it's monthly, how many of them she needs. More equipment rentals, how many days she needs them. And then some additional material costs here. And then for a total fee just coming in under $8,000. So this is something else to note as well, that while the residency, you can receive up to $8,000, say your project only ends up at about $7,000, that's okay too. What we're really looking for is that you are using professional artist fees to pay yourself, that you've paid collaborators appropriate rates based on the discipline. Because really for us at BOW, that's something that's really important to us, is that the artists are getting paid appropriately for their work and you're not undervaluing your work. And then Sima also, here she was just tracking herself in terms of what had been paid or not started yet. So that's an interesting component as well, because at the end of the residency, you will be asked to provide your final budget, because of course it may shift from this, along with a closeout report as well that you can see in the program guidelines. Okay, so I think that's everything for the presentation. I've got my email here, but you'll get an email from me as well when I send this out. So I'm gonna stop sharing for now, and we can have a bit of a discussion if we'd like around any questions. So we've got both Brittany, myself, and Amanda here as resources. So feel free to use the chat or unmute yourself. I'm gonna leave some silence for us as folks may consider some questions.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So for the residency, you mentioned 3 engagements. It's like office hours, the showcase. What was the other one?
Office hours, showcase, and then 3 public programs that you offer the community. So up to 4 office hours every week throughout the duration of your residency. So for 3 months, you're offering 4 office hours every week. And then you're doing 3 public engagements. So that could look like 1 a month, or, you know, depending on when you get yourself organized, if there's more stuff up front that you have to do, they could come later in the residency. And then the last piece is the showcase for the community in September. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you so much.
Great. Okay, and then I see a question in the chat that permanent installations aren't viable. Is an anthology a viable option? So I'm assuming that you're meaning like a book anthology, in which case, yes, I think that could be a fit. Really, with the permanent installations, what we're saying from BAL's behalf and the library's behalf is that we are just not taking ownership over artwork and won't, you know, permanently be having something on display in Mount Pleasant Village. But if you were to do your own book, or, you know, like Sima had pieces that she developed for the residency, and the youth that she worked with also had pieces that we had on display at the showcase, but then they're ultimately owned by you, and you would take them back with you at the end of the residency. So we have another question in the chat. Can it be more than 3 programs? If the public engagement is a workshop, how many people should we expect for a drop-in versus registered event? So certainly, yes, it can be more than 3 public programs. That would be a conversation with the library staff in terms of what they could accommodate or how much support you would need from them for those engagements, particularly if they were all going to be registered. So I think, I mean, maybe Brittany can speak to this, but what we found with Sima's workshop was that the registration was a bit tough because half of the folks would come out, but many folks came thinking it was a drop-in style and would have loved to participate, and some of them got to. So from our experience, like a bit of a drop, maybe you could do a double, like a registration and drop-in. But maybe I'll let Brittany speak to about how many people would you think would be coming out roughly?
Yeah, and I think that it really would depend on the type of art engagement that we were doing with the public, like how many that would, I think, gauge what would be a reasonable amount of folks coming out. But I think that, as Katie mentioned, you know, the drop-in versus registration, it is a bit of a tricky spot to navigate, but I'm happy to help navigate that just to ensure that we are getting folks who come and show up. And that you do have a chance to connect with the community. But I believe that on some of Sima's busier days, she was seeing about 10 to 15 people. if I can recall correctly from last year. And that was really good for what she was doing. And she was seeing them on a smaller, like individual level, because she was doing individual work with them as well. So again, it really depends on what type of art installation we are working on, and what that would look like. Definitely in terms of like the 3 public programs, like we would be happy to accommodate. It would just be working with our branch schedules. But I'm happy to help navigate that part. And in terms of how many customers or how many people you have interacting, it's kind of it's up in the air. But again, I'm really happy to navigate that with you. Yeah. I hope that helps. I hope that answers some of the question.
Yeah, feel free to let us know. Welcome to unmute yourself or write in the chat again. It's also a really wonderful outdoor space.
Really
so if
great.
you're looking for lots of people, you could use that outdoor space.
Yeah, I think about in years past, we had done something with an artist at our Springdale location, which was really like a drop-in activation where people were, coloring on the walls of the library, which is not usually something we're okay with, but was really great. And because of the nature of that art activation, it was easy to have dozens and dozens and dozens of people just kind of pop in and interact with it, when it made sense. But if you're doing something that's a little bit more structured, maybe a smaller group of people. And yeah, as Katie mentioned, there is a really lovely outdoor space, like a big pond area, that we could always utilize as well.
Okay, well, I'm going to leave another moment of silence and space for folks to come with a question if you have one. Okay, well, maybe that is it for now. I'll be sending out all of this information via email, and then you have our contact information as well. So feel free to reach out if other questions do come up as you review some of the materials again. But just a big thank you for coming out and learning more about this experience. If you don't already follow us on socials, I'll put our social media in the chat. That's a great way to stay in touch. The last Wednesday of the month, we have a big open studio program. So Amanda was just there last night for an event with the Festival of Literary Diversity. So not for another month now, but that'll be at the end of May. We often have a ton of different calls out to artists. We currently have one out for Brampton poets. And then hopefully today, if things go well, we have a queer professional practices program that we're announcing. So many different opportunities in addition to this one. So please do follow along, BAO Brampton, and then on our website as well, you can sign up for our newsletter. I don't know, Brittany, if you have anything else you'd like to close out with.
Just wanted to thank everyone for their time today. Yeah, really appreciate getting to connect with you. Brampton Library, like, you can find us on social media as well. We've got lots of stuff. There's always something going on at all of our branches. So would recommend just checking us out on social media and on our website for any upcoming events, programs, details. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I see one last question here, which I'll answer before ending the meeting for everybody. The question is, what if you haven't yet decided who your collaborators are? I would say that would be okay, as long as you know how they would be involved and the type of collaborator that they would be for you. So for instance, for Sima's project, she wanted to have a music composer do a score for her film, but that's not her area and she didn't know who that could be. But she put on her application and you could see in the budget that she had thought about what that fee could roughly be. So that would be what I would encourage you to do, is to think about, okay, this is the type of person I'm looking for, this is why, here's how I'm going to reach them or try and find them. So Sima came out to some of our Open Studio events actually and was able to make that connection. So BOW can be a resource in that sense as well. And then making sure that talking through the clarity of your application, that there is budget associated with that collaborator as well, if that makes sense. Okay, so maybe that's it. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their day. Please do reach out if you have any other questions. And thank you for taking the time today with us. Okay, bye everyone.